This is one of the most expensive communities in all of Salem. Let's walk around together and talk about the pros and cons of living in Chinook Estates. We are going to first start our vlog tour of Chinook Estates on foot before we jump in the car to drive around, and then we're going to end things by looking at some recently sold homes together. My name is Clarity Odd and I'm a local real estate broker here in Salem who specializes in relocations. Just like you, I relocated to Salem and now I get to make videos for you, my future clients. If you want to work with us in the home buying process, go down to the description of this video where you're going to find all of our contact information. Reach out so that we can help you. This neighborhood is actually located outside of Salem city limits. So let's pull up my interactive Salem map together and look at where exactly this neighborhood is located. What we're looking at right now is my interactive Salem, Oregon neighborhood map guide. This is where I catalog all of my YouTube videos based upon neighborhood and geography. Right here is Chinook Estates, and this is downtown Salem. You can see that there's a good distance between the two. This is roughly where the city limits of Salem stop, so you can see that Chinook Estates is well outside of city limits. If you want access to this free interactive Google guide, just go down to the link in the description of this video once you're done watching. We're going to start talking about the cons of living in Chinook Estates, because if any of these cons feel too prohibitive or you're just not jiving with them, then this neighborhood might not be the best fit for you. And that's okay. This is a very specific neighborhood and it's really not going to be right for a lot of different people out there. The first con on our list is that Chinook Estates is located pretty darn far from downtown Salem. This is probably one of the furthest neighborhoods that we're ever going to explore, but that is probably one of the biggest barriers for people who enjoy the neighborhood overall. Sometimes they feel like the 25-minute drive into downtown Salem is just too much and they would rather be closer to city limits and be closer to downtown Salem. It is also a little bit further away from the I-5 corridor, so to just get onto I-5 you can expect a 15-ish minute drive to just get to the Interstate 5. So if you're needing a neighborhood with easy commutability to I-5 or to downtown, this is probably not going to be the neighborhood for you. This is also not a neighborhood that you can walk to downtown Salem. I mean, I don't even know how you would. You would be on these little lanes, like it would be very similar to this street here where you don't have a sidewalk. Usually even getting out here, it's just like country roads, and so you don't have this little shoulder here, and it's just like two little lanes. And so it would be a really long and dangerous walk or bike ride, although I did see a biker on my way over here, but it's just not a very accessible neighborhood unless you are driving. The next con on our list, that this is probably the most expensive neighborhood in all of Salem. You can expect to pay upwards of $1 million to get into this neighborhood. Now, given part of the reason why it's so expensive is because these are acreage properties, but it's just a really expensive parcel. Oh my God, look at that mushroom busting out of the ground. Oh, cute. Little mushy friend. That one's dead and it's lived its best life. But in regards to the cost of properties here, the houses are also pretty darn big, and so you're paying for a big house, you're paying for acreage, and really you should be expecting to pay upwards of $1 million to just get into this neighborhood. So this is probably the least economically feasible neighborhood in all of Salem. Another way to say that is it's the most expensive, but let's just turn around and check out why. We're gonna get to the pros in a moment, but this is probably the biggest pro on the list here, is the view. So right now we are looking out eastward into eastern Oregon. You can see these rolling hills here, that's into the valley. There's some fog. I don't know if the camera's picking it up yet, but it's just gorgeous. So on top of getting a big house, on top of getting some acreage, it also will come with a view. So I think it's money well spent. Now, I know that this is a lot of information coming at you all at one time, and I have zero expectation that you remember anything that I said. But here's the thing. When you are ready to purchase a home, whether it be in this neighborhood or some other neighborhood in Salem, I want you to reach out and schedule a one-on-one buyer consultation with me so that I can help you in this home buying process. The next con on our list is the fact that there is an HOA in this community. Right now it has annual fees of about $300, so it's not like the most expensive or strict HOA out there, but you should be mindful that there is an HOA that governs this neighborhood. Next con on our list is the fact that with those gorgeous views, which, my God, let me just turn this around again because you can see them. Ooh, they are just spectacular. But with those gorgeous views, you are going to likely be living on a hill. I hate hills. If you've watched any of my other vlog videos, especially about Creekside or Croissant Mountain, I don't want anything to do with hills. They terrify me. I want no part in them. And so if you're like me and you're like, I don't like hills either, this might not be the neighborhood for you. But if that doesn't bother you, you could be like, yeah, hills are great because it comes with spectacular views, which totally makes sense. But I'm putting it on the con list because I don't like hills. The next con on our list is the fact that this is a really difficult neighborhood to even get into because a lot of the homes here sell off market, and just people within Salem that, you know, it's like a game of telephone and somebody hears, oh, a house might go up for sale, and they're usually scooped up before they even hit the market. And gosh, again, I feel like I'm just pointing this out so much, but I just want you to see how gorgeous these views are. Rolling hills right there. That's a little Christmas tree farm over there. I just passed some vineyards on the way up here. That right there, I think, is Mount Hood. Oh, wow, I didn't expect to see any mountains today. It's very faint. I hope you can see it too because it's really pretty. All right, what was I saying? Limited inventory. So the best way to get into this community is to finesse your way in, because a lot of the neighbors talk, a lot of the homes here don't go to the open market, and so if you are wanting a home in this neighborhood, you better find an agent who has connections. Am I talking about me? I am talking about me. I'm talking about myself. I got a little off track there for this con, but overall, just remember that the inventory is very low in this neighborhood, and there just really are not a lot of homes that are actually built in this subdivision. So if you want to get in, you kind of have to finesse your way in. The next con on our list is that all of the homes are on well and septic out here. So earlier when we were talking about where exactly this neighborhood is located, you saw that it was pretty darn far south. And so that means that it's outside of city limits. So all of the properties are going to be on well, all of the properties are going to be on septic. So that is going to be an additional layer of consideration for you if you're wanting to be out here in this neighborhood. You're not going to have city services like water and sewer. If you're liking this video so far, give it a thumbs up and go down to the comments and tell me if you would ever purchase a home on well and septic. Now, if any of those cons did not bother you and you are like, yes, I am loving the idea of acreage properties, living outside of city limits, $1 million, no problem, then these pros are just gonna be the cherry on top. The first pro on our list is the fact that these properties are on acreage. All of them are. And so some of them are tucked in the trees, like this guy here, it's surrounded by trees. But then you also have these homes at the top of some of these hills that are a little bit more open. But whatever version of acreage property you get, your acreage is going to equal privacy. So this is a very, very private neighborhood. You're gonna have the houses, they're positioned usually closer towards the middle of the acreage. So it is a very private parcel of land. And beyond that, this is a very specific neighborhood that it has Concomalee is the street that runs all the way through from, I think it would be the east to the west side of the neighborhood. And people do cut through that Concomalee street to, you know, go from one side to the other. But generally speaking, you don't have people that are just driving here. And all the driveways, as you can kind of see for this one, they are private driveways that go through the acreage down to the property. So you're never gonna have anyone driving on your driveway. That doesn't belong. The next pro on our list is that these homes typically tend to be about 3,000 or more square feet. So you are gonna get some big boy homes. You are gonna get that acreage property that is just massive. And so if you're looking for a larger home, maybe you have a large family or you're a multi-generational family, or you're just like, heck, I deserve myself a big ass home, then this is gonna be a great place to look, because most of the houses really are 3,000 or more square feet. So you can expect big homes on acreage properties, which is very unique to Salem. The next pro on our list is one that I kind of just touched on, the fact that these homes are luxury homes. So this development started in the 1970s, and these are all custom homes. So the way that this community grew was people would buy their acreage properties and then build custom homes on it. So they are all very unique and distinct, and there's no one architectural style that dictates the properties here. You're gonna get a lot of variety of property styles and architecture. The next pro on our list is that if you are a lover of nature, you are gonna love this neighborhood because it is a very tranquil setting. So you're gonna find deers and bunnies and chickens and maybe even a few peacocks if you're lucky. And look at this, they even have a neighborhood library right there, which we're used to seeing in these videos. But if you are somebody who loves to garden, you love the idea of being surrounded by nature but still being close to the city of Salem, this is a really wonderful setting. You have birds chirping, which I don't know if my camera can pick up those sweet birds. You have crickets, you have frogs, and so it really is a very peaceful kind of oasis setting here in the Pacific Northwest. And one cool thing about the properties here is, like I mentioned earlier, you do have properties that are surrounded by trees and really covered in foliage, but you also have the ability, if you're like, look, I don't want trees, I want the views, you can get these big houses up here. These ones are more recently constructed, as you can kind of see from the architecture there. But if you don't want to be surrounded by trees, maybe you want a garden with raised beds, you have that option too. And so there's a lot of ways in which you can engage with the foliage and the nature here, which is really cool. You can't find that in too many other places around Salem. The next pro on our list is that if you're somebody who wants amazing killer views of the Willamette Valley, you are going to love this neighborhood. You're going to be able to see Mount Hood and also Mount Jefferson on clear days. And like I was mentioning earlier in this video, the mountains are out today. It's a little bit colder, it's a little bit foggy. It is a beautiful day to be checking out the scenery here. If you are not adverse to hills like I am, and you feel like the views are well worth those hills, and living on a hill, it's so terrifying, you are gonna love the views that this neighborhood produces. The next pro on our list is that this is an affluent neighborhood. So very similar to Illahee, Creekside, Croissant Mountain, this is another neighborhood where if you want to be with the tastemakers of Salem, this is where you're going to want to purchase a house. It's always helpful to talk about real world experiences here, so let me tell you about my most recent clients who are looking to get into this neighborhood. They didn't purchase a house here ultimately because of the well and septic. They decided that they would rather be connected to city services in that regard. So they opted not to purchase in this neighborhood, but the house that they were looking at was an off-market property. And the way that I found them that house was an agent to agent connection. An agent that I know lives in this neighborhood, and she was getting ready to sell her house. So I said, hey, would you be open to having my clients come in there and tour your house before you even put it on the market and potentially facilitate an off-market deal? She was like, yeah, let's do it. The only problem is my kitchen is mid-renovation, which was fine because my clients had the ability to see through the renovations and, you know, the construction of that. So that wasn't an issue. But it just goes to show that it really does matter what connections you have within Salem if you want to get into this neighborhood. All right, let's jump in the car and take a driving tour of the Chinook Estates neighborhood. We are driving around the Chinook Estates neighborhood. I am gonna be winding around this whole entire subdivision for you, my friends. This is a little bit longer of a driving tour, so feel free to kind of boop and bop around before we actually jump on the internet. But while I have you here in my car with me, let's talk a little bit more about my clients who were looking at that off-market deal. Like I mentioned, they didn't decide to purchase that house because it had well and septic, but it occurred to me I wanted to go into a little bit more detail about that situation and why that was an issue for them. So on the property that I'm talking about, which I'm actually going to show you online, that property was on well and septic. That in itself wasn't necessarily like the thing that swayed my clients away from the property, but the straw that broke the camel's back for that particular house was the fact that the well was right over the property line and was actually on the neighbor's property. And my clients, they were like, we don't want to deal with that at all. If we are going to have well and septic, we want those things to be on our property. We don't want to deal with easements and access to the well and, kind of the nuances of what that really means. So that was kind of the deal breaker there. And as you go through your own process of finding a house, whether it is in Chinook Estates or not, whether it does have a well and septic or it's connected with city sewer lines, this is why it is so important to have an inspection and go through the due diligence period, because it really is your time as a home buyer to flush out any issues that you feel like the home might have. It's your time to investigate the home. Call the city, call the school district, call all of the people that you feel like you want to get their specialized expertise and opinion on, because that's what the due diligence period is all about. It's you investigating the potential house that you're about to buy and making sure you feel really good about it. You're probably like most of my clients, and you, my friend, are relocating from likely another state, which means that your contracts and real estate laws are probably very different than Oregon. But since I have you here and this is a really long driving tour, I'm just going to give you a quick rundown, because why not? So when you go under contract here in Oregon, if you decide to retain the right to conduct inspections, you can specify what kind of inspections you want. I typically suggest that my clients have a full home inspection and a sewer scope in addition to radon. And then if the full home inspector's like, hey, I think there is evidence of mold in this house, or hey, I think that the roof might be shot, that is the time that we call the specialists in. And we can say, hey, seller, we are going to get a specialist in here to investigate the roof further and give us an estimated lifespan on this roof. So that's kind of how the process works. Typically, you're going to have 10 business days to do all of the investigating on the house that you want once you go under contract. And again, guys, this is a lot of information. I'm just telling you this because I'm trying to use up this boring time of driving in the car. I'm trying to make it a little bit more fun, okay? Oh God, and it just occurred to me that talking about going under contract is probably the least fun thing for you to be talking about and hearing. But I really like it. So I guess I'm being selfish here and telling you about my favorite parts of real estate. But anywho, you have the period of time after you go under contract to really investigate the house. And the way that I handle this is I send you a list of like, yo, this is all the stuff that you should be looking at and the people that you should be calling and investigating right now. And so don't feel like you have to remember all of this stuff, before we even begin this house hunting process. But I just think it's cool to bring in, the real world examples of my clients and how they navigate certain situations, because a lot of times I do see patterns over and over again. But generally people who are looking in Chinook Estates, they are totally fine with well and septic. And in this particular circumstance, it was just my clients not wanting to have the easement with the neighbors to access their well and blah, 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 blah. Boring stuff. Gosh, what else can I talk about Chinook Estates? I would say that this is one of the more lesser known kind of luxury areas outside of Salem. I think for a lot of people who actually live in Salem, they know about this development, but a lot of people who are relocating to Salem, they either don't have agents who know about this community, or they just, a house is not up on the market for sale, and so it doesn't actually pop up on their radar. So if this is a community that is of high interest to you, which I'm guessing if you've heard me ramble on for this amount of time, what am I going on, 6 minutes? My God. I'm guessing that you're probably pretty dang interested in this community. And the most success that I've actually found in finessing my clients' way into this community is really just networking. And that's why it's really important to have an agent in Salem who knows other agents and has those connections, because Salem is really a small town. And I know that I mentioned this before in a few of my other videos, but it's pretty stinking cliquey. And that was one of my biggest gripes when I relocated to Salem, was the fact that I felt like it was cliquey. And it was a little bit harder to get intertwined in the community here because everyone grew up with each other and there really aren't too many people that relocate to Salem. And so it kind of maintains that cliquey vibe. But once I kind of broke through or made friends in my office and, I just started to mingle more and get more ingrained in the community, I realized very quickly how important those agent-to-agent connections are, because it's like, it's just like you have these tendrils, like you connect with one person who is born and raised in Salem, and then all of a sudden you've tapped into their network of people, and that is invaluable. And I've worked really hard over the past few years to really develop those strong relationships with locals who are born and raised in Salem and other agents who are well connected, because at the end of the day, it really, really does pay off for my clients in a very direct way. And like I was telling you earlier about my client experience, the ones that didn't purchase in this community because of the well and septic, that relationship there with the other agent, that was a direct result of me being like, all right, got to get myself into this community of Salem and really network. It was a direct result of that. So you can see that there is a lot of payoff in, breaking through those cliquey barriers that you might feel in the beginning. Okay, I don't know what else to talk about, so I'm just going to let you enjoy the rest of this driving tour. If you have any questions about this community, put them down in the comments. And once we're done driving around, we're going to jump on the internet and I'm going to show you the exact house that I've been talking about that my clients were looking at. Okay, bye. We just finished our driving tour of this neighborhood, so let's pop over to the internet and talk about some of the recently sold homes in this neighborhood. I'm going to point out the property that my clients were interested in, but ultimately decided not to purchase because of the well and septic. Hi friends! What we're looking at right now is Chinook Estates. This line right here is where the subdivision is, and I just want to point out something real quick. So we're looking at sold homes in Chinook Estates, and on Redfin you have the ability to go back to a year. I want to point out that we're looking at all of the sold homes right now within the past year in Chinook Estates, and there is only one. So we're actually going to go back 3 years just because we want to check out a little bit more inventory, and as you can see here, there's still only a handful of homes. Remember, this neighborhood has a limited amount of inventory, and as you can see here, it's demonstrated with the data. Before we jump into checking out homes in this neighborhood that have sold, you're probably wondering, why the fudge am I on Redfin if I have access to the entirety of the MLS? And friends, I recognize that you too have access to all of this information and technology through places like Zillow and Redfin, and I'm a huge proponent of the democratization of real estate through technology. I love the fact that you can enjoy the process and you can look at cool, funky, and beautiful homes online. So I'm taking a page out of my own book, and we're going to go through the steps that I want you to go through with yourself, your partner, your friends, whoever, maybe even your doggo or your cat, whoever you want to. But if there's a neighborhood that you're interested in, it's really helpful to look at the recently sold homes in the neighborhood. So let's do it together. I have identified a few homes that we're going to look at. The first one is the one that my clients were actually interested in. This was owned by an agent. They bought it at a bankruptcy sale, and she renovated the property. Like I mentioned earlier, ultimately my clients didn't go with it because they decided in the end they didn't really want to deal with well and septic. But this is a big boy home. Like I was telling you earlier, these homes are pretty darn big. This one is over 4,000 feet and was built in 2004. All right, sold for $1 million, which is actually kind of surprising. I didn't think that this house would sell for over $1 million. You're going to find a variety of homes similar to this one in that there was kind of this open fielded area back here, but a lot of the acreage for this property actually went into the trees. Big garages, that was the back area. It was fully fenced. And this one did not have good views of the mountains or anything, but it did have an open field and then that back forested area. So there's a lot of variety in the type of acreage that you can get depending on where the home is actually positioned in the subdivision. Travertine tile, pretty. And this was the kitchen where the homeowner slash agent that I connected with and knew she was going to sell her house. This is the kitchen where she was like, look, I am renovating the kitchen. Your clients need to be able to see through that renovation if we're going to be showing them the property. And they did. The kitchen was no big deal for them. Ultimately, they did not go with this house. So congratulations to whoever did go with this house. Okay, if you want to investigate this home further, this is the address down here. Okay, on to the next one. This one is a massive house, 7,000 square feet, y'all. It is huge. And this one was built in 2001, sold for 1.6. Okay, and why I wanted to show you this one was because it's actually very similar to the last property that we just looked at together, except its views and the type of acreage that it's sitting on is very, very different. So you can see here that they have trees as well, but they have valley views and they're on a little bit more of a hill. And so there's their view looking out towards the back, and I can't tell if they would have mountain views or not. And here they have very similar to the last property, tiled floors, bigger kitchen in this one, but very similar. You can tell that this one was constructed in the early 2000s just by kind of the style of it. I feel like some of these things have fallen out of fashion now. And I'm sorry, but this is just ugly. Ooh, if you like that I support you, but I just don't like it. Shh, don't tell anyone. Oh, but look, so romantic. Oh my God. Very cute. Okay, I'm just like getting too involved in this. Let's continue moving on. This was clearly for the kiddos. I don't know who in their right mind would choose that bright of a color for themselves unless it was for the children. Very cool, very cool. Actually, let me go back here because a lot of these homes do come with bonus rooms. This one, like I said, is 7,000 square feet, so they're probably having multiple bonus rooms, but it is pretty common to see like a rec room with a little wet bar, and so you can't expect that in a lot of these homes in this neighborhood. This one has a great, I don't know if this is like an exterior shed or the garage. They've got a wine cellar. So they've got lots and lots going on in this 7,000 square foot baby. But look at these views, guys. Oh my gosh, it's just so pretty. And I don't know who threw that picture in there. But if you want great valley views, you can definitely get it. If you want to check out this home on your own, this is the address right here. Okay, and the last one that we're going to look at is a little bit different than the other two, but it is also dang tootin' big, almost 5,000 square feet. This one also sold for 1.6. And let's see, it was constructed in 2007. So all of these are early 2000s construction. But why I wanted to show you this one was because you don't have all of the trees like the other two homes had. This one is sitting up a little bit higher on the hill, so you do have some valley views, but not quite as intense as the other home that we were just checking out. All right, this one is pretty standard. You're gonna see a lot of these homes have these big picture windows that are, I mean, this one is a 2-story window right here, and that is pretty common depending on where the house is looking out towards. But this one has killer views, and I just love it. Look at how gorgeous these views are. And this is really why these houses are just so expensive, in combination with it being on acreage property and the houses just being massive. You have those literal $1 million views. A little bit more gourmet of a kitchen here. You've got a nice range and a little breakfast nook. God dang, I love those breakfast nooks and benches. Oh, they're just so much fun. Okay, I'm gonna kind of breeze through this one a little bit quickly because I wanna point out the view. If you like outdoor living, you want to be able to sit out on your patio, have some coffee, have some tea, have some wine, or maybe all three. Ooh, hot damn, that was a good rhyme. You're gonna find that a lot of these homes do have good decks to soak in those views. All right, if you want to check out this home, here is the address. So one thing that I want you to be mindful of with all of these homes that have sold in Chinook Estates is they are very much likely going to be $1 million or over. Now, you're probably looking at this map and you're like, oh my gosh, Clarity, wait, there was one for $385,000. Well, y'all, let me show you what you get. You get a parcel of land for $385,000. If you wanted to purchase land, I mean, there's none for sale right now, but if you wanted to purchase land and construct your own custom home, you could do that if that parcel of land is still available by the time that you're watching this video. But otherwise, you really should expect to pay $1 million and up if you want to get into this community. If you liked this video, you are going to want to watch this one next. Bye, friends.